Hey everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, author of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. I'm here with Andrew Vontz from the Choose the Hard Way podcast and newsletter. We're back from our unplanned sabbatical, but I'm in London. Don't ask. It's complicated. But Andrew, do you want to plug anything before we get going? Before we break down pedal stroke by pedal stroke, the Tour of Switzerland, which I'm sure everyone watched start to finish and wants to hear our detailed analysis of.
Spencer, it's great to hear your voice. I'm back from my neck injury. My plans to participate in the 2025 Tour de France, unfortunately, will have to be put on hold. A lot of listener outreach asking me if I would be stepping in for Jonas Abrahamsson. The answer is not yet. However, if you were a senior leader, a politician, a venture partner, a professional athlete, you know you need to be great at podcasts. It's now a mission-critical communication channel, and my consultancy, One Real Voice, helps you to show up as the best podcast guest that you can be. When you're ready to be great, you can DM me at HardwayPod, shoot me an email, hello@onerealvoice.com. Also, Spencer, new episode of United States of Sweat presented by Choose the Hard Way out today with Tom Perriello, former congressman from Virginia, special envoy to Sudan, and very interesting episode about being a politician and diplomat as an endurance sport. I encourage you to check it out. I had no idea that when you're in the midst of negotiating the end of a humanitarian crisis, you might only be able to sleep 3.5 hours a night for a full year because you're actually working that much, and some strange things start happening to the human body, much as is the case for Julian Alaphilippe as he prepares to head to the Tour de France. So you can check that out on Choose the Hard Way everywhere you listen. And if you haven't already, Spencer, you've sent a lot of subscribers my way to my Substack, always the hard way. .substack.com. I'd love to see more of you over there. I'm writing about life in Maine, cycling, Zen and applied mindfulness, and lots of other things. Big post this week about my lawn mowing experiences here in Hope, Maine.
Did you have a tubeless issue with your lawnmower?
I did. Yeah, I had a tubeless issue today, and AI is taking over everything, as we know. There are moments, though, when I think, what a time to be alive. Yeah, my caster wheel on the front of my commercial mower, the tire became unseated from the bead. It slipped into the center channel. This is even worse than if you have like a 28 mil internal width gravel wheel and you have the same issues. So the tire dropped into the center rim. I'm like, how am I ever going to get this thing reinflated? Why did it happen? I go on ChatGPT. The issue being, if your bead is not touching any part of the rim, how are you going to get air in there? It's just going to blow out. I had never thought of this before. And Spencer, I ran a commercial lawn service for 8 years when I was in high school and college called the Yard Barber in the KC metro area in Overland Park.
No free ads.
Yeah. No longer operational. Well known, I'm sure, to many listeners from the Mocan area there. I had never seen this technique. ChatGPT, I uploaded some photos, told it what was going on. It had me put a ratchet strap around the wheel, and then I tightened the ratchet strap. That pressed the beads against the rim, and then when I got out the compressor, it pushed the beads out instead of the air escaping, and it worked.
You know, what's funny is I've fixed it, but I just like the night before BWR Kansas, I was like, yeah, I guess my wheels should be tubeless. And I just threw them on, pumped them up.
Man,
I never think about, I mean, obviously I could have been in a tough spot there, but then like the last 2 months, I've been having all these problems with exactly what you're saying. It sits in the center channel and you can't push it out to touch the rim and all the air goes out. So that's good to know. The ratchet strap, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I actually might try that on a set of wheels I'm having a little bit of an issue with.
Interesting. Well, before we get into our in-depth Tour of Switzerland breakdown, also David Gaudu, another rider, just like yourself, not making a start. at the Tour de France. Shocking stuff. Not shocking if you watch the Giro. He looks in terrible shape. I think he moved recently in the last few years. Maybe he should rethink that move. Get out of the south of France, David, because it's not working. Another bit of news. Total Energies is going to be on the Ineos jerseys for the Tour. That's notable because Total Energies is a team that's racing in the Tour. So you're going to have a team racing, and then that team sponsor is also going to be on another team's jersey. I'm not quite sure I've ever seen that outside of like a equipment sponsor. So I don't quite understand how that's allowed. I guess they're going to combine teams next year. They're trying to get ahead of the ball, but that is wild stuff if you think about it.
Sounds like a Christopher Nolan film, high concept.
Also, Ineos, Jim, I'm in the UK. I don't want to anger Ratcliffe too much. Is he like, you ever know these people, I don't know, like 2018, let's say you just graduate from college, so-and-so, they work for Deloitte. And you're like, they're the richest person in the world. Like, they must make $80,000 a year. And they're like, they're living in Hell's Kitchen. They're at the club every week. And then you find out that they're like actually broke. Is that like Jim Ratcliffe in terms of rich guys? Like, this guy he came in, he bought Manchester United. He bought, I guess it was Team Sky at the time. It's like, he's the richest person in Britain. He's going to turn the team around. And then he never seems to have any money. Like, they're cutting lunches at Manchester United. Ineos is now bringing on French sponsors, like title sponsors. Like, what's going on there?
They're getting rid of hot lunch.
They can the hot lunches. No more first class train tickets either for Manchester United staff. It's tough. Yeah, no free lunches for staff. And then they like signed like hundreds of millions of pounds of players, and you're like, was the 5,000 pounds a year in hot lunches like really moving the needle there? This is such a big deal. I was at the train station next to my house, and I thought a podcast was playing through the loudspeaker, like a soccer podcast, because some guy was ranting about this. Very well, very eloquent. I realized it was the ticket agent, like through the speaker, just talking to his friend. It's like, man, is everyone in the UK just like capable of hosting a top level sports podcast at the drop of a hat? But the people are not happy about it, as far as I can hear.
Something that's worth looking into is, at this point, how many people has Ineos shoved into a pontoon on that trimaran?
Well, they signed your guy. Remember this Kevin Vauclon?
Yes.
You liked him. You wondered why he was there. He's going to Ineos. It's like, oops, we may never see him again. Like Tobias Foss, who did just win the Norwegian time trial championships, I'm seeing. But Angel, I don't have tubeless with me right now. I brought a rim brake bike because the idea was I was going to be in London for the Tour. I was going to be at the Tour for parts of the Tour. That's no longer happening. I have to go back to the U.S. to work on a Tour de France themed television show, which I'm not sure I'm allowed to disclose yet, but I won't be here. I'll be coming back, but I'm coming back for vacation in the French Alps at the end of the Tour. So I had to bring a bike that was going to work for everything, but I didn't want to travel with a disc brake bike. It's always a problem. Like, the rotors always get bent. I don't like packing the brakes. So bring the rim brake bike, 303 carbon clinchers, terrible braking. That thing is light, like so light, way lighter than my actual expensive bikes. Like, I think in 5 years, you're going to have like rim brake models coming out that are like new climbing specific specialized ethos. It's only $35,000 and it's a rim brake bike because these things fly uphill.
Spencer, it's funny. I have started moving in the opposite direction. Now that I'm 85% healed, I would say. Now that we're reaching the apex of summer, I'm getting outside on the bike. I have my new Lauf bikes built. I've been out there on the Futile, which it also has the disc brake version. And I can't believe how fast this bike is. And because it's more of, I guess you would call it an endurance or all-road bike. I don't know the nomenclature for these kinds of things. I went out on the group ride, which here in Hope, Maine, if you have more than 2 people, you have a group ride. And this was one of the biggest ever. I think we had 8 people possibly last weekend. And it was the first dry Saturday in, I think, 18 Saturdays. It had rained or snowed 17 Saturdays in a row. So getting out there on the Futile, we break this streak, and you get a few bonus watts anytime you're out there on a new bike, no matter what. I think there's just definitely a bit of a psychological performance enhancement. This bike, to me, was noticeably faster than the extremely light Canyon rim brake bike that I've been riding. And significantly, Spencer, it has a functioning headset, which I could never get the headset to stay tight on that Canyon. And as you know, that led to me having feelings of that I was going to die when I was riding it in Tucson. It just was uncontrollable in winds and downhills. So it feels good to be out there on a bike that's functionally sound. It's solid. It's super fast. Interestingly, I don't know if you saw this, Velo News they're doing like pink bike style roundup reviews where they'll pit 5 or 6 bikes against each other. They had the Utald in their roundup review this week. And did you ever test bikes? Did you ever do gear testing stuff?
It's funny you mentioned that. I was always intimidated by it. I wanted to. I remember I interviewed with Ben Delaney. Ben Delaney interviewed me for a position at Bike Radar. If you remember this magazine website, didn't get the job. Went to my boss at the time, who then like left in a huff. But no, I almost took that turn. Could have been a different life for me. I find it hard though. Like you're talking about these bikes. There's like a lot of times I'm like, this bike felt nice, and like I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. I think we may have talked about this 2 or 3 years ago. And early on in my career, I worked at a cycling magazine called Mountain Biking for about 2 years. I was writing more than half of that magazine for $28,000 a year.
It's like pro cycling was written by Ed Pickering solo for like 5 years.
Yeah, and I would test 3 or 4 bikes a month and then write about a bunch of parts. And after a short period of time, you can just pick up the phone, and when you're doing that kind of job, there's no pay to play, and people know they can just send you stuff, right? And they know that you want to ride the nice light stuff. And I just became really jaded by having all the nicest stuff all of the time. And I wasn't actually significantly improving as a cyclist. I just was getting all of this nice equipment, and it just like really distorted my relationship with gear. And then I became really kind of immune to it and sick of it, and realized I could just have a bike that's just fine. It didn't need to be the nicest bike in the world. Now that I'm on this new Utald though, I'm like, wow, this bike, I've ridden a lot of nice bikes. It feels great. It's comfortable. It's fast. And I read this Velo News review, and I think the Utald, the top of the line one, which I'm riding, I think it retails for, it's in the sixes. It's in the 6,000s. It might be $6,500, $7,000. And to me, that's a very expensive bike. In this shootout though, it's compared to all of these bikes that are $15,000, $16,000.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, and why are you comparing a bike that's an extremely good value and rides really nice with like a $15,000 bike though? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. A $15,000 bike better be one of the nicest pieces of equipment you've ever touched in your entire life.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of complex thoughts about those bikes. Like the Specialized Athos, it's like a beautiful bike. Like I love it. It's probably my favorite like consumer bike just to think about, to look at. Like it's like 15 grand, like what you're saying. And like it's kind of a good bike. I don't quite get where the value. I mean, if you're trying to win the Tour, but then what's funny is like Tadej Pogačar might be on, at least a few years ago, was probably on a worse bike than you're riding right now with your Lauf.
Right.
And he was, winning the Tour.
Somehow. And he's going to transition. He's going to win the Tour again this year.
It's funny. You teed this up perfectly. So Dauphiné, we haven't spoken since the last 3 days of the Dauphiné.
It's been too long.
We recorded a podcast that for embarrassing reasons, SD card reasons, will never be released. But from a car park in the Denver airport, an hour later, 2 hours later, Pogačar goes on just to nuke everybody on stage 6. Just one of the best. Like your buddy Zach Nur had some different numbers than I had on my calculator. The only thing I'm taking into account is I work with people who like one of my coworkers put out 520 watts for 20 minutes, and it was not that much heavier than Pogačar, and Pogačar is going significantly faster than him on the same climbs. So I have to assume that Pogacar is putting out, like maybe not 5:20 for 20 minutes, but like not that far below that, because how else would he be traveling so much faster than my friend? But he just nukes everybody. Same thing Saturday, does nukes Vingegaard, but Vingegaard's 14 seconds back, looks better, but Pogacar looks like he was like holding back. 40-minute climb, maybe one of the best performances he's ever had, slightly below his performances at the Tour last year. Looks easy for him. Vingegaard's destroyed, as you would expect. Stage 8, Pogacar's just like, he's not even really like racing. He's just defending, easily, finishes with Vingegaard. They kind of let Lenny Martinez wins. Vingegaard looks upset that Pogacar won't sprint against him and just rolls over the line. Chris Horner has like a big breakdown about how Visma's screwing up. They shouldn't have pulled. They could have won if they did XYZ. Chris Horner, very smart guy, knows a lot about racing. No, he's forgotten more about racing today than I'll ever know. But at the end of the day, are you kind of thinking like, what are we talking about here? Like, he would have nuked him no matter what. Like, he's just so much better than everybody else right now. Like, does any of this matter? Like, teams, like, Vingegaard's team is better. It's like, okay, well, when Pogacar goes, then he's alone. He's isolated, but he's isolated off the front because he's by himself and he's riding away from everybody. So what does any of this matter? Like, that's the point I'm at this point.
The Pog feat of athleticism that impressed me the most recently was something I saw on social media. Spencer, I have no idea if this was new or old. Mark Zuckerberg just controls my mind and he puts things in front of me and I consume them. It was Pog grabbing a water bottle from one car, and then as he rode past another one, he threw the bottle and it was a perfect shot through the window. And the thing that jumped out at me is we think of these athletes. I don't. I think a lot of people who might follow mainstream ball sports think of cyclists as engines. They might think of them more the way I think about triathletes, people who can hold just this steady effort for a long period of time while vomiting and shitting their pants. That's right. Like, that's kind of like the pro triathlete profile. When you think about professional cyclists, some people map that model onto it. We know it's dynamic. It's athleticism. They could do the tap lights like F1 drivers, hand-eye coordination, balance, proprioception. It's the total package. And when I saw that Pog shot, I thought, you know what? People a few months back were making fun of that UAE basketball shoot around in some arena. I bet these guys are probably pretty awesome at ball sports. They were caught at a weird moment. They were out there in Lycra, right?
Have they ever played basketball before?
I don't know.
Yeah, probably not.
Do you know
so
what
they're not going to look good. Yeah.
Yeah. You may have seen some of the footage from, it might have been the Tour de Titama guys. I don't even remember how to say that now. When they went around, they were having like Matthew Van Der Poel and other athletes at the Tour juggle the soccer ball. And we know, right? I mean, these are super athletic human beings who can probably do just about anything. And that's what that Pog clip reminded me of. Not just great at riding a bike, great at everything, and with panache and a laugh sometimes as his competitors try to have a go at him.
Yeah, it's fine. I was just walking around thinking about this 2 days ago because like Bradley Wiggins looks like a professional athlete right now, but like not a cyclist. It's like shocking to people, right? But you think about it, like he's an amazing athlete. Just to be able to do what he did on the track and to win the Tour, you have to be a really good athlete. I was thinking like every Tour winner, like if you win the Tour, you're a really good, just general athlete. It might not look like it, but like Jonas Vingegaard, he looks, I think a lot of times because they have to lean down so much, they just kind of look goofy in their own body. It's like that guy is an athlete. Like even as much as it pains me to say it, like Chris Froome, probably a pretty good athlete. Maybe might have to edit that out of the show. Cadel Evans, I don't know.
You should leave it in. Yeah, you should leave it in. Yeah, like, he's a great athlete, but you're right. People would look at Chris Froome and think, honestly, this person looks a little strange. He looks freakish. He's so thin, but with such a large frame. And this is making me think about when we think about post-retirement Geraint Thomas coming soon, we know the guy likes to have 15, 16 pints.
I just saw him. I
In the
just saw him
off-season.
crushing him down at the pub.
Right? Geraint Thomas, when he's going to be a DS, right? Like he's going to be out there in a car, isn't he?
That's what, like, I don't know. That's what the reports say. I have a hard time believing.
Okay, so he's a DS. Is he going in the direction of a Roodhoof, a Vino, a Sean Yates, where he's going to continue to be this freakish, super lean athlete? I'm thinking maybe we see Geraint Thomas going into High Rocks, becoming one of those guys. And when he does, I think he's going to look like a linebacker. Geraint Thomas should probably naturally, when he's not training to be a professional cyclist and starts banging some weights, as a lot of these UK-based World Tour pros seem to like to do once they go into retirement, this guy could be a CrossFit Games winner.
Yeah, he's a really good example because he doesn't look so athletic, but we almost forget like the feats he's doing on the bike, like at the weight he is, like being able to just like, yeah, I'll just get in shape and I'll be Ineos's best Grand Tour contender at almost 40 years old. Like that's insane. And like what he's done in the classics, on the track, at the Tour, definitely a really good athlete. Here's the thing I struggle with about him in a management role. Roodhoof, think about all these great managers. Richard Pluga, our good friend, Mark Reef, who kind of Moraine Zeman was like running the strategy at Visma. What do all these people have in common? They were not good professional cyclists, or they were not top level professional cyclists. Like really, if you think about it, who's the best pro cyclist manager, it might be like Mark Matteo, who I think maybe he doesn't speak English, so I can say this, not a very good manager of a pro cycling team. Like there's almost an inverse relationship between, and I guess I'm flirting here with danger a little bit because like you'd say, well, Johan Bernal, pretty good, right? Won Tour stages, good rider, but I think, you know, even someone close to him said this to me. Like I always thought he was like a C talent with A results. So he was like outperforming his talent because he's so intelligent about cycling. But like not many managers are good riders. And you don't see many Grand Tour winners hang him up, especially Tour winners, and like jump in the team car. Like have we? I'm struggling to think of an example where we've ever seen that before. Like most of these guys just kind of like go away because they're bad. Like it's like, what would the advice be? Like, hey, just win the Tour. Like, what's the problem here? Like, I don't understand what's going on. Just pedal really hard and you'll drop everybody. So I do struggle to see him in a management position. It just because of the precedent that most managers are not top level, like top tier level riders.
Yeah, the ones who immediately come to mind are Charlie Wegelius, who I love Charlie Wegelius's writing. If you haven't read his book, I think it's one of the best books.
But what's the title of his book?
Put me on the spot.
It's Domestique, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's like right there, like good
yeah. Okay.
rider,
all right. Yeah. He's a Domestique. You're right. I remember running into Rolf Sorensen at Paris-Roubaix 2004, shortly post-retirement. I don't know if he was an agent or a DS at the time. He would be an example. I don't know what he's looking like now, but at that moment in time, he had gone more in the direction of late stage John Belushi kind of lifestyle. And
you see that a lot with these guys. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not to disparage Rolf. What a legend on the bike. I don't know how he's looking now. I believe he's a writer's agent and is doing quite well for himself. Vino, I would say, is an example of someone who, I mean, he's a tier 1 World Tour rider, tier 1 results, and going out and winning age group Ironmans. Is he in the car day to day though, or is he more of a butter? He's kind of like putting on the large, oversized pink turtleneck and doing Unchained kind of vibe.
Well, yeah, we glossed over the obvious example. Jonathan Vaughters, fantastic manager, fantastic rider, but Vino, I think Vino's big talent is he's like a god, I think, in Kazakhstan. So he can go to the government, get the funds, come back to the team. He does seem like a good I don't think he sticks his beak in, except I think he was the driving force behind. It's like, we got to have Miguel Angel Lopez. This guy's the future. And I think they fired him and like brought him back. And then he got caught trafficking drugs. And this was like maybe after he left the Vuelta, or maybe that was before. But there was red flag. No, he beat someone up at the Giro on the side of the road. I don't know if you remember this.
Wow. He jumped off and beat some spectator.
Yeah, there was signs that maybe that's not the guy you want to hitch your wagon to, but Vino was like obsessed with it. And then this Canadian group came in to give them money and was like, you cannot have this guy on the team. And it was a big behind the scenes battle at the team. But yeah, I don't, even just like to bounce a little off topic, I think like Thibaut Pinot, like what's he doing right now? Like, could someone get him back racing? I don't know. I can't stop. Like, he was so good when he retired. And it's like, is he just at the farm right now? Like, what's going on with Thibaut Pinot? Like, could Ineos pull him in for a leadership role for this Tour de France? Would that be their best option, actually?
Pinot's definitely feeding chocolate croissants to
He's probably not fit.
Chocolate. His name actually came up in the news this week, and now I can't find. Yeah, I can't find what the news was. So this isn't a lot of help. Just listening to you describe Vino and some of his labor issues that he had off the field, sounds to me like he would be a fantastic GM in the NFL or head coach.
Yeah, that's.
I mean. Well, you're just describing like the average NFL coach, right?
Well, there is a funny thing in the NFL where now it's more popular that you are like actually know what you're doing. And you're like Andy Reid is like an offensive genius, probably doesn't know what defense is, but he can delegate that. But then there's this like Nick Sirianni, coach of the Eagles, just won the Super Bowl, like doesn't coach offense or defense. He's just there, right? He's setting the tone. He's the CEO. And it would be easy when things are going well to be like, so what exactly do you do here? You just kind of are there. But Vino's supplying the team with money. So I guess he's almost like a manager coach. On to Tour of Switzerland before we're not going to dive deep into this. But João Almeida wins. Kind of interesting because he was the big heavy favorite before the race because he loses like 3.5 minutes on the first stage. He's not it's like a 35 rider break, loses time to like Ben O'Connor, Kevin Vauquelin, Oscar Onley, and he has to like claw it back over the course of 7 days. Does a very good job of doing so. Wins the final time trial, 10K, 9% uphill. That's pretty tough. Time trial and wins the overall by 1 minute 7 seconds over Kevin Vauquelin. 158 over Oscar Onley. Interestingly enough, Ineos' top rider. I know we're bagging on Ineos a lot at this on the show. 37th, Bob Jungels. Oof, that's not good. Especially when you consider Oscar Onley is British, should be on that team, riding for Team Picnic Post-L, probably the worst team of the year right now, and they get third. Arkea B&B is not even coming back next year. They get second. So that's not great when those guys beat you. But Almeida looks good. Like even my estimation for him on that TT, 26-minute effort, so almost 30 minutes, 445 watts, 6.8 watts per kilo, 100 VAM. Pretty good. And like similar to Almeida at last year's Tour of Switzerland. The crazy thing is he's then just going to transition to domestique role for Tadej Pogačar. So that's kind of intimidating. As I said, does any of this actually matter? Because when these guys go head to head in the mountains, it's probably more important just to be the stronger rider versus to have the stronger team. But any thoughts from this Tour of Switzerland, which Almeida who like struggled to win it all. And I don't know if you've noticed, he's won his last 3 World Tour stage races that he's done.
Not a bad result. When you look at the top 5 and you see Julian Alaphilippe up there,
that's concerns are happening. Yeah, I noticed this as well.
Right. What does this say, Spencer, about the significance of this race?
Well, I will say he got in a breakaway stage 1 and got 3.5 minutes. So he was kind of like managing losses the entire time. I will say Switzerland. I love Switzerland. I would go to Switzerland right now. If someone wanted to go on vacation there, I'd say, sure, that sounds great. Great country. The race looked good. The roads looked good. I think I said this on the move, so it's not going to be a surprise. It's my second least favorite World Tour race behind Tour of Guangxi. Like nothing about it grabs the imagination. Am I crazy on that? Like I can barely remember any moments of the Tour of Switzerland from years past.
This goes back to our ongoing discussion about this sport would benefit from having the best riders at the races. And when you don't have that, what do you actually have? I'm a diehard cycling fan. I'm going to watch everything. If you want this sport to have mass appeal, do we need to have a calendar and some rules rather than rules about how far apart our brifters can be? Yes, Kip, I'm talking to you. Let's have Kip's corner. Maybe we should be focused on getting the top riders competing against each other more than 4 times a year.
I think like I didn't watch the show, but Orla Shinoui, there's like a clip of her being like, it's ridiculous. We haven't seen Jonas and Tadej face off from the Tour last year to the Dauphiné this year. And it is a little ridiculous. But yeah, I was sitting through the Tour of Switzerland at times thinking, this feels a little bit like eating my vegetables. Like, why am I watching Jordi Meus win? Who could win a Tour stage? The guy's very good, looks fit, but it just felt like this, if I'm going to be completely honest, felt a little bit like minor league cycling. As much as I love like Kevin Vauclon, I love Almeida, I love Oscar Onley. It just did not feel like top level racing. But I guess that's to be expected when you have 2 World Tour stage races that overlap. So you couldn't feasibly race both, right? Because they have a day that's one's finishing, one's starting. So you're shooting yourself in the foot right there. I would say your friend Harry Sweeney, 5th in the time trial. Pretty good result. Pretty notable, the time trial that hard. Going forward from this, João Almeida wins the race. You're like, that's interesting, right? Going to be good domestique. Can you on the spot just tell me what stage races do you think are better than João Almeida right now?
How many do you want?
I mean, how many? So obviously Tadej, Jonas, right? Pencil them in. I don't know. I feel like it starts to get interesting after that.
It does get interesting. And this isn't answering your question, but I see Ben O'Connor in 7th. What are you hearing about Ben O'Connor these days? Like, where is he at? He was such a prominent figure in Unchained. Heart of the peloton last year.
I don't think we can question O'Connor because he gets 4th at the 21 Tour. And then he goes into hibernation, right? He gets 7th at the 22 Vuelta. Kind of disappointing for a rider that got 4th at the Tour. And then he has that terrible Tour highlighted in Unchained in 23. 24 almost wins the Vuelta, gets 2nd. So I don't know if we can question O'Connor. And then he gets 2nd at Worlds in the race championship.
Yeah, not bad.
So he's a rider. I think he's up and down. I do kind of wonder about that acquisition for Jayco because you kind of wonder, what did that cost them? Maybe they did the contract before the Vuelta result, but they're a team. If I was working for Jayco, I'd say we need really consistent riders. Like, in 7th at Switzerland, that's a good result for a team like Jayco. You'll take that. But it's like, is that really the type of rider? He seemed more like a decathlon rider, to be honest with you. Like that's where he seemed at home. So at Jayco, I just don't know if he must be their highest paid rider. I can't imagine that's what they're looking for from their highest paid rider.
Spencer, how does it make sense to wait until July 2nd to release the next season?
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
What are they thinking?
People ask me, they're like, are you guys you're going to break that down on the show, right? I was remembering in years past, we would be on like episode 8 by now, like, because it would come out 3 weeks before the Tour. It's like, I don't think we're going to talk about it on the show because it's going to come out basically the night before the Tour de France. So no, we won't talk about it. What are they thinking? The only thing I can think of is, did it come out in years past and casuals watched it and were like, yeah, I'm ready to watch the Tour. And then it's like 2 weeks and they're losing people in those 2 weeks and they wanted to back it up as close as possible to the Tour as a lead-in. But then again, what does box-to-box productions care about the Tour de France? People watching that, like, maybe it just wasn't ready in time. I don't know. That'd be my best guess.
Yeah, you could be right.
I mean, I have a little bit of like knowledge on how it works. And I guess the only thing I would say is, it's maybe you might be surprised at the date that they're like deciding whether to put things in the show or not. You might think, wow, that's quite close to the release date. So that's the only thing that made me wonder, like maybe they just didn't get it together in time and they had to release it on the 2nd. But I don't know. It's what do you think? Like, what would be the strategy there?
Yeah, Tour de France mania is highest, and interest in professional cycling is highest during the Tour de France. I guess that's when the general public might be most interested in consuming this content. And that's when they might go and look for it on Netflix, would be my guess. Like the average person who has passing interest in this sport sees something, they see the Jason Gay column that will get written. I don't know who it's going to be about this year. Quinn Simmons? I don't know.
Is he going to be at the Tour? He won a stage at Switzerland, by the way. We should have led with that. Super impressive stage win.
That's part of why he's top of mind. Maybe it's Quinn Simmons at the Tour. If he's there, I think he has a chance of winning a stage. I don't know what it is. There's some standout ride. Last year, Jason Gay, maybe he did Wout or he did Matthew Van Der Poel. It's always that person that it's Nirvana once it's gotten on the radio. I would say that's typically who's getting profiled in the Jason Gay column, right?
And this is just you and me. Like, everyone just be cool who's listening. You don't have to say anything to anyone about this. I will just say, and Jason Gay is very good. Like,
yeah, he's an exceptional
what he does,
writer.
He's a rock star, right? Like,
totally. Great guy too.
Just try to sit there every week and be like, all right, think of the column that America's going to read about sports. Go. You would crush everyone. Like, the man is a deep sea diver. But that type of sports writing, I find myself having a hard time engaging with recently. And I can't fully tell you why. Like, and I don't want to sound like a robot, but I don't know if I need to know the stories behind the racing. Like, the what's on the page is on the page. And like, that's kind of what I care about. I know that sounds insane, but I just have a hard time reading fluff anymore. It's just like, give me a tactical breakdown of the game. Other than that, I'm not that. Or like Pep Guardiola taking a poop in the middle of the locker room at halftime to make a point. Like, that type of in-depth stuff. That didn't happen, by the way. I just made that up. But
wow, I missed that one.
I would love to read it.
Yeah.
Give me that story. But like, really behind the scenes stuff, and then like in-depth breakdowns. And then I really have a hard time reading general interest stuff about sports I follow.
More broadly, even if we abstract it away from sports and into the domain of, let's just say, feature writing, profile writing of significant public figures, now that you can get most of that in a disintermediated fashion and just hear the person talk about themselves for 1 to 3 hours on 50 different podcasts, that tends to be more what I'm interested in, is just hearing from the person directly or hearing them in conversation and hearing anecdotes come out. And there are still some people who have takes or analyses that are so interesting about the behavior of other people, or they sum it up in such a way I find it to be interesting. And podcasts also give us this ability to just directly connect with people and are taking the place perhaps of a lot of that, where you can just hear for yourself and decide.
Yeah, like you interviewing Harry Sweeney on Choose a Hard Way. Like, that I would rather interact with than like Harry Sweeney sitting in his Niçois apartment, looked out the window at the Mediterranean and decided he had to make a change, and he moved to Andorra. You know, like, I've read that piece so many times. It's like, I don't know if I can do it anymore.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're not going to name the famous public figure or the writer or the publication that this one was in, because what I'm about to say probably will call to mind hundreds, if not thousands, of profiles. But it's the high profile writer from outlet X that's a high profile outlet sitting down with super high profile person Y, and the story opens with the super high profile person Y picking at a salad and some description of what that means about who they are. And as journalists ourselves who have written these types of pieces, the reason you're getting that is because to constrain the ability of the super high profile person to make some kind of narrative or messaging mistake, they've only given the writer like 45 minutes at some cafe, and then they have to build out 4,000 words about this topic and draw conclusions about this person's character or how they think based on how they hold their fork or fidget or whatever, the transition lenses that they're wearing.
Yeah, it's always like
Yeah.
Barack Obama rushes into the cafe wearing penny loafers in desperate need of a polish. Yeah, and he furiously goes to the menu with the eye of someone who has more to care about than the menu of an Upper East Side deli. But I guess that you mentioned that, it's like, because that's all they were given.
That's all you get. You work with
Yeah.
what you get. It's like Seinfeld said, the trash man picks up the trash every day, no matter what's happening. And not that journalists are, maybe not the best analogy. You're not working with trash, but you kind of work with what you get and the time you have with your subject. That's how it works.
We can tell pro cycling's popping off when we are digging into these celebrity profiles from the from the odds. But
all right, let me ask you this, Spencer. Getting back to the Tour de Suisse and looking at the Tour de France, I see that Julian Alaphilippe 5th place, and I think Julian Alaphilippe, I think he's a great guy. He seems like a great teammate, and we talked about this when it went down 3 years ago when his career really pivoted in a direction we didn't anticipate. It was that season when he had multiple massive crashes. He just lost his edge, and his father also died that season. So I don't know if he became a father then as well. I don't even know if Julian Alaphilippe is a father. I might be making that up.
I feel like he is. I feel like I've seen him in the vicinity of a child, but that's me making assumptions.
Right. I don't know. A lot of things happen in his life that I think brought into focus his mortality and made him less willing to take the kind of risks you need to take if you want to be a winner in professional cycling. The thing I keep thinking about, and listeners don't hate me for making this analogy, I just see that Alaphilippe trajectory and I think of Wout.
Well, okay. All right. I see the concern. Noted. Here's my crazy theory about Alaphilippe, and this is a hot take. There's no point holding this in any longer. Stage 7 of the Tour of Switzerland. The guy's an amazing athlete, speaking of athletes, and bike racer. Like, I'm not doubting his talent at riding a bike and handling a bike, racing a bike. I think he's world class at that. He's sitting 3rd overall on stage 7 of the Tour of Switzerland, 41 seconds behind Kevin Vauquelin. This is a guy who finished top 5 of the Tour de France fairly recently. Stage 8, time trial, race of truth, 10K long, 9% uphill. Can't get simpler than this. He finishes almost 4 minutes behind João Almeida. My theory about Alaphilippe is I bet Alaphilippe is stronger now than in 2019 when he almost won the Tour. I think that he just never had the engine to compete with the numbers people are putting out now. And that, a cavalry was human moving troops got outpaced by air travel when the Air Force came into the military. And I think he's kind of like that. He just didn't have the supersonic speed, the ability to sit 7 watts per kilo for 30 minutes in a time trial or in a climb. And he's just getting blown out of the water by people who are now eating carbs and can put out massive watts. I think the starve yourself, everyone put out 5.5 watts per kilo, which is that's the climbing that was winning the Tour in 2018, 2019, 5.5 watts per kilo on these climbs. I think Alaphilippe is great at that, but as people have gotten faster because they're not hungry all the time and they're actually eating food on the bike, that he's being exposed as just not having the same engine as those people. And that's the Alaphilippe problem. Not all the stuff you said, which I did think was the problem before I came up with this theory.
I'm going to take that into consideration. It's worth considering.
Because he was so good at this race. He looks like Alaphilippe, and then they get to a set piece and it looks like he's going in slow motion.
And the carb thing is absolutely wild. It gets talked about so much. I just watched Scott Sports has a YouTube series focused just on Cam Jones, and it's titled Chasing the Wild Card or something like that. The premise of the series is finished because Cam Jones won Unbound, and then his first official action following that victory was to come here on Beyond the Peloton to talk with us. Which was a smart move. And subsequently, it's been reported 5,000 times that he was eating 200 grams of carbs per hour, which I think even the Norwegians would say, oh no, that's not possible. I watched the second video in this series, and I think part of what we learned when we had Cam on this show. And you'll learn also when you hear the episode I did with Cam for Choose the Hard Way, which is going to be dropping soon. Just very focused and has a lot of fun doing his job and can switch that focus on and off, which that's what the very best athletes in the world can do that normal people really struggle with. They can be really relaxed and chill when they need to be relaxed and be chill. And then they can switch it on exactly when it needs to be switched on, and they're not wasting any energy. In this behind the scenes video, his mom and dad are with him from New Zealand, and the day before Unbound, they're practicing the musette hand-ups outside. I was just like, it's like, man, this is like me going to a race with my mom and dad in 1995. Stars, they're just like us. I'm like, this is incredible. This guy didn't have 15 people in his pit crew power washing him, etc. The reason I'm bringing this up is not this carbs thing. I keep thinking about many aspects of the World Tour pro cycling industrial complex that are still really stuck in the dark ages. Spencer, how many times have we talked about the overprescription of antibiotics for viral illnesses, for example, or air conditioning? What if you just gave them all air conditioning? Or what if we like went beyond the constraints of ASO needing to book out whatever hotels have paid them off, the Ibis chain, I don't know what it is. We actually get these people in nice accommodations so they can get good sleep when they're racing their bikes for 3 weeks straight. We've modernized the carb thing. We now have, like, these athletes are actually eating to go perform on their bike for 5-6 hours a day. They bring along the chefs. What are some of the basic things that are no-brainers that are just being totally overlooked besides xenon gas, right?
A different show. That is super interesting, by the way, the xenon. But the AC thing is fucking crazy because, like, we're in a heat wave here in London, and it is like the way British houses are built. Like, an 85-degree day can stifle you because there's no negative airflow. Somehow there's less than zero airflow, so you're sleeping terrible. Like, it's shocking how bad your sleep is. Imagine doing that for 21 days while you're like doing the effort of your life. I went to a movie studio today that was climate controlled, potentially the only climate controlled building in the country. I felt like a superhuman. I was like, oh my Lord, like I just need to be living in here, sleeping in here. Like, this is where the body's happy. Like, the fact that, and not only do they not, a lot of times they don't get hotels with AC, but if they do get hotels with AC, they won't turn it on because they think it's going to get the riders sick. You're like, if you just let these guys sleep in air conditioning or sleep on a bus like Richie Port, and what year was that, 2011 or whatever, like, that's how they need to be sleeping to actually recover. And it could be you're like, so they're going so fast because they're eating food? That doesn't seem that hard to figure out, but it was. I mean, there was a block for a long time. Like, these sky riders were starving themselves because they thought that was the way to ride faster.
How about that? It's amazing. The other thing that's popped up here in advance of the tour, and for people who don't know what, the writing that I was doing about cycling in the early 2000s, I actually wrote about doping a lot as it was becoming an issue and what was happening. And over time, it's been interesting to see the coverage evolve and in some ways stay the exact same. And in many ways, sensationalize things that, to me, Spencer, don't seem that sensational. A German news source, ARD, came out with this report in the previous week titled "Doping Top Secret: in the Slipstream." I was wondering if there was any significance to this phrase, "in the slipstream." And it basically says that there are two forms of doping that continue to be pervasive. One is microdosing of EPO. I believe that to be true. And the other one is this weight loss drug called ACAR. I don't even know what ACAR is. Do you know?
No, there's a lot of like, I don't know what ACAR is. There's a lot of like, I feel like people would be shocked at I would call it like gray area doping, just the amount of medications that people are digging through to find an edge.
Yeah.
So that checks out.
Yeah. And there was nothing particularly surprising in this report, and it was presented in this highly sensationalized manner. And yeah, I just kind of felt like, but where's the new information?
Yeah, and like microdosing EPO, like he could not only in cycling, like you imagine you're
Tennis player.
oh yeah, tennis player, like all these soccer teams, like they're playing so many games. It's like, well, it could help them just a little bit of EPO. And like baseball, they had the steroids era, and now it's my belief that it's like a little bit of steroids era. It's like everyone just learned to like chill out a little bit. It's like, yeah, instead of doing too many steroids, just do a little bit. You'll feel better and you'll recover better. And I think that's like the new frontier, and to the point where it's so ubiquitous probably in every sport that it's like not a huge deal. Is maybe that's controversial to say, but I think we're in the little bit era of sports doping would be my little bit, but very common and all over the place would be my assessment.
We're no longer in although I do believe there was a Sarah doping positive from an Astana development team writer earlier.
Yeah, I do. I think Sarah, Sarah, oddly, I think it's one of the pushes to skip U23s, like the lower level you go to, you'll see like crazy levels of doping. Like Grand Fondo of New York, I think they had like 3 years in a row where the winner tested positive for EPO. Like your local group ride, people might be jacked up to the gills, and like U23s, the controls aren't the same. I think that is part of the push to like, hey, Quinn, maybe skip U23s because you don't need to race against a bunch of doped up kids who then, you look at results a lot of times from top junior races 10 years ago, and you think, well, the winners will be stars right now. And a lot of times you've never heard of these people, probably because they were maxing out their ability to perform on performance-enhancing drugs as children, and then they can't continue to improve as needed. But Andrew, I'm about to get kicked out of their studio in favor of potentially some and/or watching or sleep. So I give you 2 more minutes to dump the thoughts.
The only other thought I have on this particular topic is I don't think we're seeing anything of the magnitude of Activegen. I don't know if you remember that one. It was synthetic bovine hemoglobin. Sorry, I'm just like going down memory lane of some of my doping's favorite hits.
I think someone almost died from that.
Yeah,
I don't want to say their name because I'm not sure.
Yeah, there was a rider, they took Activegen, and then I think they went into a coma. You don't want to take synthetic bovine hemoglobin when you're a human. So don't try that if you're preparing for your next Masters gravel race.
They came out of that coma and they went on to manage a very good professional cycling team, is all we'll say.
Yeah. A final thought here, Spencer. What do you think about gravel cycling in Routt County? Because it is, of course, SBT weekend, and we know
isn't it?
that those gravel deviants are out there fouling the roads as it is time to hay. The hay is being hayed here in Hope as we speak.
It's funny you mentioned this. I just saw an Instagram video of, it's like, some gravel account spamming me, and it's crazy that it's Steamboat weekend now, that it's Steamboat time, but they basically got pushed out of their space because of what we witnessed when we went up there last year. It just didn't feel like a good relationship. It felt like Steamboat was going to push them out. I'm actually surprised they got this backup date, but I got so upset by it. I almost had to like turn the phone off, where it's just like, I almost can't get into it, where they're like, we need to keep it rural. It's like, so a bunch of cyclists showing up once a year to your event is then like not making the land rural. It's just like ranchers pushing them out. It's like this presumption in the US that it's like, we can't have anyone on our property ever, or anyone in our town ever. It ruins it. Like, really deeply upsets me.
I know you've been out at the Velodrome a lot. We can get into that in a future episode when we go deeper on your family's European summer. What's going on with gravel over there? What's the vibe?
Oh, man, that's a good question. It does feel like if you were an enterprising person, you would come, because it does feel behind. Like, I'm in a text group, a big text group of like cool. It's like, if they found out who I was, I'd get kicked. If they found out my age, I'd get kicked out of this text group. But it's like a London club of like cool people they're all into skinny, tired road bikes. And it's like, I almost feel like I have forbidden knowledge. I'm like, if you guys started riding bigger tires, like the bike's going to feel amazing. You could even go on this stuff, this little gravelly stuff, and you're going to be away from the cars. But it does feel like it's not fully adopted here. I don't fully understand. It does seem like there's a lot of in some of these countries though, like more developed, or they've just been developed longer. Like in Europe, maybe they've just paved a lot more of the roads, so you have more options, and the gravel's not as important. But it does feel like there'd be a lot of frontier here for gravel riding. It does not feel as ubiquitous as the U.S. I think there's room to grow. I think someone could get over here and start promoting gravel events and like start a gravel club. Start a club where you have to like pay money to even just tell people to ride bigger tires. Like that could do well. I will say on the Velodrome, I'm in love with the Herne Hill Velodrome. We went over there for they have like an under 5 training program that you can enter, and we are loving the track. Like that's also crazy to me. Then it's a simple structure, it's not an Olympic velodrome. It was at one point, but it's not to today's standards. It's just asphalt. There's a bunch of like people out there riding fast on the outer ring. You have kids on the inner ring, a lot of people there. Good for the community. You can just go get a workout in the middle of a city. Like, it's unclear to me why this isn't more popular in the US. And you can learn how to race. Like, a lot of good racers come out of South London because of this.
It's wild. In San Francisco, there's the polo field, and there's a dirt track on the exterior, and then the interior. It's basically about the size of a soccer field, maybe bigger, and then it's just a paved asphalt loop around it. And it's not banked. It's not a velodrome. It's not very wide. There have been some ill-conceived attempts at some of the many different cycling clubs out there in San Francisco trying to have race type events on it, which have ended poorly at times. Yet it's an area where you can go and just ride laps. And as you've noted, it's kind of revelatory when you can just like go ride uninterrupted without having to worry about a car running you over on a road bike. It's incredible.
And like, I went over in the morning, like 6 a.m. I don't even know if this is sanctioned, and there's just like people ripping around on road bikes. And it's great for group rides because you can have groups go off the front. If they want to go hard, they'll eventually lap, but that keeps the group together. If you get dropped, you just wait and you're back in the group. You don't have to stop. If you're living in a big city, like London, like if I want to go ride in Surrey, I'm going to be going through a lot of junk miles, like stop to get out there. Like the velodrome, you're just in it right away. Like, it is revolutionary, like how much it can improve your road riding in like, let's say, a work week in a city, to the point where I'm surprised. I think they could probably do well in the US. Maybe the permitting would be too tough and people wouldn't want to do it, but I don't know. I think in like New York, it would be really popular.
Yeah. I think the gatekeeping that would take place among the cycling community to get onto the track might be the actual obstacle. Well, before we sign off here, I think perhaps a goal before the end of the summer, as you said, Spencer, you're on the inside. We can't really name names, starting to infiltrate the highest levels of cool person cycling in the United Kingdom. Do you think it's possible? I could pop over for a weekend. Do you think we could get inside of the Pidcock entourage, like 48 hours with the Pidcock entourage?
I don't know. That might be a bridge too far for even myself. It's funny you mentioned this group. I do often wonder, this chat I'm in, I'm like, do they even know who like Tadej Pogačar is? But you know who they would know? Tom Pidcock. Like, that guy's broken through. Like, so I think you and I are sometimes baffled by his embrace of extreme and possibly incredibly dangerous, potentially even stupid stunts, like strapping yourself via tether to a motorcycle and going almost 100 miles an hour on a bicycle. But he does break through to the mainstream. Like, that guy, he's making noise over here. There's a reason he's making $7 million a year, not really winning that much.
Stand by. Entourage, we're ready.
Yeah, and we just need that. Before you come over, we need the dollar to start doing better. So if people could just start buying U.S. Treasuries, we got to get this exchange rate up. This thing is crushing the Beyond the Peloton travel budget.
Perfect.
All right, so everyone, get out there, buy your T-bills this weekend, please, and we will be back with an episode before the Tour de France. Before we leave, we don't have to go through the Visma team. Do you feel like, am I going crazy? They released this in January, and then they released it again today. And it's like we're supposed to have a reaction. It's like, you just you double release this. You can't get two cycles out of this.
Yeah, this was, oh man, we could do an hour on this in a future episode. I can't tell you how many times within a billion-dollar tech company I would have to explain to people that you can only have your first launch of something once. As soon as something is live, it has launched. And like, yeah, you can do a lot of things to engineer interesting marketing moments around it in the future. What you can't do is say this is the first time we have done something more than once.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. So I'm looking at these names and I'm thinking, these all seem familiar. Oh, wait, this is the Tour de France team that you guys released almost 6 months ago.
How about that?
Yeah, we'll go through the specific team next week because who knows? People could break their collarbones or
get hit by a car or whatever.
Yeah, which I would not be shocked if that does happen to someone in a team before the tour. But thank you, Andrew, and we will talk next week.